Right, so welcome back, and now let's continue with the remaining menus that we have, and of course thereafter we'll be going on the toolbars. So let's see how soon are we able to finish with all the menus that we have. Yeah, now this is not a very pleasant thing that we need to drag it. There should have been a better way of doing it, but that's fine. That's how the software is designed. So now let's click on arrange. Now what happens is in arrange you can group, ungroup, you can make a symbol, you can rotate, you can align. So of course, for all these to happen, let us do one thing. Let us insert some parts. So more parts in the library. So what I'm doing is I'm adding this particular IC, I'm adding it over here. Okay, and then I'm adding another part out here. So let us take a AVR. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Package, no. Potentiometer, a resistor. Okay, let's take some resistors. Okay, so I'm connecting the resistor over here, and let us also take, again, why am I doing this? Because I want to show some things to y'all. Okay, now you can see that once we have selected this, all these got activated. Earlier they were not activated. If I deselect this and I come here, none of these will be activated. Now the object or the point is, why do we have them? So like, since we have them, there is a use for it, of course, is it not? So now I'm changing this to top copper layer. Okay, and well, let's do one thing. I'll delete these and I'll work afresh, because this was on top silk screen layer, so I'm supposed to have this on the top copper layer. And yeah, the resistor that I'm connecting here, placing it here, and we'll rotate it. Okay, but I'll do that later. And then I also have a capacitor, so I'm going to select here on the paths. I click on more parts in library, and then I click on capacitor, and now let me see which one should I pick. Should I go for a tantalum or electrolytic capacitor or a normal capacitor? Axial. Okay, let's select an axial capacitor. No, that's too big actually. Okay, I'm picking a polarized capacitor. Okay, and note one thing, that there is a specification in terms of the diameter that it will need. Okay, so it's 18 millimeters, 21 millimeters, 4.5 millimeters. So these dimensions will matter, okay, when we go into placing the traces, or having the pads and holes and such things. So this is something you all should keep a note of, not now, but when it happens, it will happen. So let's take 0.5 inch lead. Okay, I'm coming and I'm placing it over here, and I'm just drawing any random circuit. There is nothing really out here. So right, so we placed 3 components. Let us add a couple of more components. So again, I click on parts, I click on more parts in library, and I'm going to select a battery. Yeah, and or should we go for a regulator? No, that's not what I'm looking for. Okay, let's select a battery. So coin cell holder, no, that's, yeah, we'll select this battery. Okay, I'm placing it over here somewhere. Now what I'll do is, again, understand why am I doing this. Okay, because I want to explain some of these functions to you all, that's why. Now first things first, I want to rotate this particular capacitor. Okay, so I select this capacitor, I come and click on the arrange menu, click here, and then I select whether you want to rotate it left or right or how. So let us select it left. No, that is not how I wanted it to select it. So again, I'll click on arrange, rotate left, and rotate left. Of course, now you have, like, the keyboard shortcuts also, but for now I wanted you to understand the menu. So this is how I've arranged it. Okay, and now this is, like, this is a plus, this is a negative, this is a anode, and this is the cathode side of the capacitor. So what I'll do is I'll connect it using a trace now. Okay, so I'm selecting a trace. I click on trace, and I come here and I'll zoom in here, and I'll connect this particular capacitor with this particular pin of the IC. So this trace is now done. Now there is another pin out here that I want to connect with these two. So what I'll do is I'll draw a trace here. Wait, I'll click on the trace. I'll come here. So this is how I connected a trace. Okay. Now this particular resistor, I want to, like, align it on the top. So let's click here. Okay, this particular capacitor resistor that I have, now there is a group. I would like to create a group here. So what I'm doing is I'm selecting this entire component, not the entire component, only the capacitor, IC, and the battery, and I click on arrange and click group. So these three are now part of a group. So if I bring the cursor on any of these, the entire group will activate. Okay, so that is one way of doing it. The second thing is, you can of course always ungroup it. You select them and you click on ungroup it. So now if you bring your cursor here on the capacitor, only the capacitor will be activated. If you click it on the IC 555 timer, again only 555 will be selected, and so the same that applies to the battery as well. So that is what we had for the group and ungroup functions, but that's not an end. I want to still connect all the traces. So what I'm doing here is I select trace, I come out all the way here, and I connect it over here, and then I press escape button on my key on my keyboard to disconnect it. So this is how we are drawing the PCB as you can see it, and of course, whilst this is the only the initial aspect, the objective is to explain to you all the different functions that are included as part of the arrange menu. So now if I were to say flip horizontal, click yes to flip the group element and invert the layer placement. I say yes. Okay, and if I want to click on this, and if I want to say that, like, I want to add this as a layer, so on which layer do you want to associate it, this particular spare bit? I want to say top copper layer. If I make it a bottom copper layer, then it will come on the bottom copper layer. Okay, so you can see here when it becomes a bottom copper layer, you can see a green trace over here. If I change this as a top copper layer, right click on that and top copper layer, then it turns red. So you can understand that And why does it turn red? Because out here we can see that the settings are such that the copper layer at the bottom is green colored and the top copper layer is red and the top silk screen layer is yellow. So whatever you are seeing here, these they are on the silk screen. So if I want to change this to top silk screen, then this will show up on the silk screen. And so this is what we have as far as the arrange view is concerned. And you can also align top or middle align. So these are the different alignments that are applicable and available. We don't need them yet, so we can take a look at that later. Now let's click on grid. So grid is relatively simpler and easier for us to understand. Okay, out here when you click hide, let's do one thing. Let's reduce the size of the PCB that we are seeing here. If I click on view and I click on if I click on a grid and I click hide, all the dots have disappeared from here. There's nothing here. If I select grid and if I select dots, then the dots appear. Again, if I click on grid and I click on lines, then this is how your grid will appear for your PCB design or for your board design. You can have a grid and the snap spacing also. So grid to snap spacing, you can select whatever you want. 0.1, you can also make this 0.05. Okay, and enter. So this becomes 0.05. You can see that the grid lines have reduced, and if you want to make this 0.01 or 0.1 and you press enter on your keyboard, then this increases. Likewise for the snap also, it's 0.025. If I want to make it 0.035 and I press enter, then the snap will also change accordingly. So this is how your grid menu is placed. If you click on constraint angle of trace and line, then it will create a constraint. So like the amount of inclination that you can have for your trace will change accordingly. And if you click on crosshairs, we have we have turned it off, but if you want to select it as all, so this is how your crosshairs will appear. But it is always a good practice to not have crosshair, or you can have it only vertical, or you can also have it as horizontal. If you select horizontal here, then this is how your crosshairs will appear or look like. But frankly, I personally am not a very great fan of crosshairs, and that's why I've not been using it in AutoCAD either. Let's click off over here, and then yeah. So this is what you had as far as the arrange and the grid lines are concerned, the grid menus are concerned. In the next video, we'll be speaking on the view, which is a lot more important menu in the Express PCB Plus software. So till then, thank you and enjoy the Express PCB course.